Well, today's project is a big ass case tractor, articulated tractor with 8 wheels, and it's an STX375. Originally got this call because the owner was having issues whenever it would start just fine. As soon as you start it up, you go to drive and you get an error code, a transmission fault. I did some diagnostics, did a wiring repair down there. There's a bunch of individual modules for this, and those were those silver things right there. That's a transmission control module and a few other modules for everything. There's a module for the armrest, module for pretty much everything. This dude has sat here for about a year. Had another mechanic come out and look at it, couldn't get it going, and another mechanic kept promising to come out, and that happened to him 5 or 6 times. I finally started working on it. Came out about a month ago and had this transmission controller fault. Well, I had an EST program, the actual diagnostic tool you're supposed to use, but I didn't have the right adapter. So I purchased a new adapter, and I got a really good source on C&H adapters if you guys need one. They're about $800. Bought an adapter, and in the meantime, the guy that I bought it from, I told him I really needed it, can you rush it? And he didn't have any in stock, so he sent me his personal loaner. So I got that. It's this one right there. I came out here. The diagnostic port is right there, hooked up to it, went to fire my laptop up, and my laptop loaded, started loading the icons, and then quit. And I jacked with it all day. My laptop crashed with all my programs on it, so I had to buy another laptop. So now I've got a Dell, I think it's a 5430. Yeah, 5430 rugged, newer laptop, 2 terabytes of memory and hard drive space. Swapped out when I got it, put Windows 10 on it, had my software guy re-download all my programs. So I think I paid $800 for the laptop, $1,800 for the programs, $800 for the adapter. So I am well in the green in this project, but came back out here today and again had some software issues. So I had to go home, get the software issues fixed, get a different cable. Finally came back, hooked up to it, and now we're ready to go. There's always something. See, we've got an engine fault and it will not start. I've already pulled the fault code for the engine, and it's a 428 code. It just means fuel pressure low at fuel rail. So something frustrating about these tractors, if you use the case electronic service tool, the EST program, you can't read very much engine data. The engine is actually a Cummins, and you have to use Cummins Insight to get any data out of it, which is a different adapter, and I use a USB Link 3. I'll show all of this to you guys here in a minute, but I need to get the damn thing running so I can try to cycle it in gear. Something seems kind of weird, and I might be wrong in this. I came out and there is a method to clear the code. So if you turn that, and I know it's really hard to see, so you're gonna have to bear with me, but you have that engine fault. If you hit reset, hold the diag button down, now you're in diagnostic menu mode. So you can go down, hit programming to go to the engine, and that gives you your code, 482. If you hit up, that gives you any more other stored codes. So from this moment, I think it's hold the down button and diag. No, maybe it's down and up. Try and get it where you can see it. I know it's really hard to see. Alright, you hold the down and up button. That should clear the code. Hit programming. We still have a 482. Now if you hit reset, you go back, or program rather, and go down, transmission. We have 00 transmission codes. Now I can put it into gear. That's our gear selector right there. Put that down in the drive. And it's basically telling me, hey, the engine's not running, you're still in neutral, you're not going to be in drive. So I can clear the codes for the transmission on here, but every single time I cleared them and I tried that without the engine running, I got a fault. I think the fault code's still there. I think it needs a transmission control module, but I got into my laptop, got the program and everything loaded, and when I did, then I could actually clear the codes for the transmission controller, and it didn't come back on. So right now I need to fix the engine. I'll show you what I found on the engine. So if you come out here and you pull this cover off, you get the engine. And I found this electrical taped to that butt connector. Not a very good job. If you're working on equipment, even things that are in the cab, there's so much dust and moisture and everything. You need to put some heat shrink tubing over the outside of your connector, or use a connector that already has it. I tend to double it up. I tend to put a solder, it's called a solder seal connector. I know a lot of you guys don't like that, but it's because you're using it wrong, at least in my opinion. I've had really, really good success with them, but you can't use them how the manufacturer tells you. I'm going to show you on here. If you put these little non-seal butt connectors on here, they just collect moisture, and they're cheap. Most of the time when you see the butt connector and it's got that really solid color, blue, red, yellow to it, they're like a plastic, and they're usually just dirt cheap. They don't ever last. So I'm going to clean these wires up, get them stripped back, and then show you how I make the connection with the little solder seal connector. Now this wire goes to this fuel solenoid, and you can tell it looks like it's gotten hot, or something's happened to it. It's not melted, but it's just all shriveled up. It almost looks like the wire was broke, and instead of stripping wire, somebody tried to pull the insulation back for some reason, and didn't do a good job. So I'm going to take it off here, get a new pigtail connected to there, instead of just trying to connect it from here to here and then having two connections. So something kind of worries me about this. If you can tell, you see how it's all wet? When I was loosening it earlier, I saw a little dribble of something come out of there, and that's a fuel solenoid. You shouldn't have fuel on this side. Pretty sure you're not supposed to. It might just be a seal behind it, and that's the way it's designed. I guess the fuel maybe cools it off, but I don't think that is how it's supposed to be. I'm going to clean it up. We're going to make that new wire and then start it, and then I'll tell the customer that I think we need to put another fuel control solenoid on it. I really didn't get to film because I didn't have very much room, but I had to use a regular butt connector because I'd have to take that block off. I don't really know what that's for. It looks like a junction block of something, but got my wire fixed up. Let's go back up in the cab and see if we can clear that code. Turn that on. Program, let's see. Diag. Down. Program. We still have a 482. Well, do a little more diagnosis. Well, we just got a whole disaster going here. We've got this one that somebody's chewed into. What happened there? We've got a repair here. Don't know what's going on there. We've got a random wire that's not connected to anything, it seems, and then our ground, which looks like it was originally connected right there, not connected to nothing. So that goes to the fuel pump. There's a little the wires to the fuel pump come to this guy, this little module. I'm not sure what all the wiring is for. This one has a 5 amp fuse in it. I did check the fuse. It was full of diesel because we have a fuel leak right here. That didn't seem to do anything. I haven't checked voltage for it, but I need to get the wires repaired and look up a schematic real quick to see what these are for. I'm pretty sure this is going to be a 12 volt constant, a ground. And that's probably how come our fuel pump's not running. But I need to verify. So I'm going to look up some schematics and we'll get back. So I have Cummins Inside open, and I had to use my Nexus adapter because you can't use the CNH program. You go to the CNH program, go to troubleshooting, it has a spot for engine, but it doesn't give you any information at all. So you need the information from Cummins. The information from Cummins is actually on Cummins Quick Serve, and I didn't get Quick Serve installed because I didn't think about it. So I had to mail the manual online. So now I need to transfer the manual from my phone to my laptop so I can actually look at the wiring schematic. But you can tell our fuel pressure is at 1 psi and 0 RPM. I'll go ahead and crank it. Fuel pump is not coming on. So I'm going to get the manual onto my laptop and then look up the schematic. All right, I know I was wrong. That is a fuel solenoid. It's a fuel shutoff solenoid. If you can look here, that number 8, that's what we're looking for. Fuel shutoff valve. Now the only weird thing about that fuel shutoff valve is there's only one terminal on it, so I don't know if there's supposed to be another terminal on it for a ground, or that's just kind of a blank, but I'll look through. Unfortunately, the pump on the side is a lift pump that was installed by CNH, and CNH doesn't have anything in their manual about the fuel lift pump and the wiring, so I'm just going to have to basically guess. This one's constant. This one has power, so this is the fuel shutdown valve solenoid. I guess it doesn't need this little tab, even though I don't know, it's supposed to be. It looks like there's supposed to be a terminal sticking out of this, and the terminal is off. And don't know why. Maybe they took this thing out and disabled it or something. Not sure. I got my power probe hooked up to that black wire, and the other one, I don't know if you guys can hear that. But that is a lift pump. Not sure what happened. This thing was running. It was running okay, and I ran it for a while. So I'm not sure how this was set up and how this got to the point that it's at right now, even though I think I've been the only one out here messing with it. So I'm going to wire the ground up, wire the 12 volt positive for that electric lift pump over to the fuel shutdown solenoid, and then go up in the cab and look at Cummins inside to see if we have fuel pressure at the fuel rail, and then maybe it'll start. So I actually just remembered something, and it's funny because I made a video about a different Cummins, and this is a similar setup. This is not an always on lift pump. It's not supposed to be. It's only supposed to come on when you turn the key on, run for about 30 seconds, and it's only to prime the system, and that's your actual mechanical pump. So as long as your fueling actuator is working, you really shouldn't need your lift pump. I did supply voltage to it for a little while, but that's not going to be our supply. I have to figure out why we're not getting fuel, and this fuel actuator has a broken off tab. Well, she's running. I don't have any throttle. It looks like my engine fault's gone away. So our code is inactive. Go over here to our engine. Fuel pressure, fuel shutoff valve. So now we have actual pressure. So now I can actually get back on the original job that I was supposed to do. It's running, but the lift pump is not wired up like it's supposed to be at all, which I have to figure out. But I came out here for a transmission issue, so I'm about to pop it in drive, and we're going to see if the transmission issue went away. I highly doubt it. And I still don't have any throttle control. So I'm going to put that in forward, and if it does have a transmission problem still, then it'll immediately pop up. And that's the transmission code we've been getting. Now I can actually pull the transmission control module out and swap it out and then program it, and then we can do what we're supposed to. Alright, so now I need to get all this crap out of the way to get to that module, so I'll disconnect that and figure out how to get in there. Got my CNH adapter hooked back up. We're going to turn the key on. It's going to beep for a little bit, but I'm going to show you guys. We're going to open the CNH electronic service tool. One, it'll pop up and have a bunch of icons, and you need to select which equipment manufacturer that you're dealing with, because Case has a big conglomerate. There's Case, New Holland, and there's agriculture, then there's construction, and Case construction, and Case large construction. So we're going to do Case agriculture. Come down here to the tractor. That's going to ask us for the serial number real quick. I'll punch that in. You hit OK. Ask us if we have permission. Alright, so now we're in this screen. Looks really old school, like it came out of the 80s. We're going to go up here to programming. Now, if you look at all of our control modules that we have, these are the only ones listed. So we need to set them up for downloads so we can get the data file out of the transmission control module. So hit setup, because they turn the key on and off. And you have to do this because if you don't, one, it won't work, but two, watch that display. That display will go off. When I turn the key back on, display will kind of flash, but then no data will come on. So we'll hit OK. So now every one of these that we have the little up and down arrow, that means we're ready for that particular controller to access. So we're going to view controller information. I took a picture of this. I don't know if it's that necessary, but it's good to take a picture of it anyway. So we're going to go to browse. We're going to select this file. We're going to open it. Then hit OK. And now we can program download. It's not what I want to do. I want to download it. I don't want to replace it. How would I did wrong? Hang on. Need to go to browse. Alright, so we already had the program file in here. I'm going to try to reprogram this and see what happens. I don't think it's going to work, but now we hit program download. Ask if we want to. We're going to say yes. And now we'll let it download. After it downloads, I'm going to try this again. Cycle the key on and off, put it in drive, and see if maybe it was just a programming issue. I don't think it is. I'm pretty sure that the problem with this thing was a wiring repair that was underneath. There was one little short wire. They had an issue with it before where the wire, I guess it got caught on something and then it moved around. They fixed it, worked for a little while. My gut's telling me that the transmission control module was faulty, so I did a pinout diagnostics of it. I actually disconnected it from underneath the tractor, went up here to the transmission control module. I checked the ohms through it. It was within spec. But we're having a short 12 volt to positive and a short to ground, both of those. Now, if we have one of those codes, like a short to ground, and that was the only code stored, then that'd be one issue. If we had a short to positive, that'd be another issue. The fact that both of them are shorted, I don't think both of those wires are touching inside the wiring harness somehow, just sporadically. And everything checks out on all of our other pinout tests, so that's why we doomed the transmission control module. All right, so we have programmed it successfully. Okay, so we have a new information. So now I'm going to cycle the key off, turn it back on. We should get our display back. Start it. See if that accomplished anything. We come over here to retrieve fault codes. Double click that guy. Hang on a second. Review our service faults. We have a 56030. So this code is for, I misspoke earlier, 5 volt valve coil circuit is shorted to 12 volts when the valve is on. Now, if I do this enough, I'll get 12 volts shorted and negative shorted. I get two different codes. And I like how it won't show you the entire bottom, like it cuts it off for some reason. So we can clear controller faults, we can refresh, exit, or we can troubleshoot the problem. So we'll go to troubleshooter. That just brings us over to this very antiquated looking setup. And it gives you a list. So ours is a 56030. It's going to be one of these. Go down to this one. And this is going to tell us all of our information about what we need to test. I've already tested all these. On the bottom of the transmission, all of the solenoids are the same. I actually took one of the solenoids off and replaced it with a known good one, and the same fault ran. I disconnected that solenoid on the bottom and repinned the controller up here, ran individual wires to them, and I still had the same faults for everything, so that's why the controller is issued. But this gives you the entire, basically what was in the service manual. And it gives you all of your connectors. So if you have the program, this works really, really well. I'm going to show you. If you don't have the program, this is what you end up with, is a PDF file of everything. And it is so ridiculous to navigate. So you go up here to page 1. This is what it starts with. And it just tells you, like, okay, so let's say we want to go to Fuel Electrical tab 4. PC code, section number 4001. And then if we scroll down, you have to go through every single one of these because there's no page number. So it tells you section and tab number. You can go down to the tab number. Let's see, tab 4. It just takes you forever to get to these tabs, and you have to sit there and constantly scroll down, browse through all the numbers. Hopefully you can just read the numbers as they flash on the side. We're in the 3000s right now. All right, now we're into 4000s. And so as an example, if you want to do that fault code that we had, you'd have to go scroll down to page, I think it's 2600, and it would tell you to pin out connector 3 or 5 or whatever, 5F connector. Now to get to that, you have to scroll down and you have to find which connector it is, then the actual connector view, and then the number. So if you have EST, it makes it a lot simpler because you can just come over here, go to the 5F clutch solenoid. That's what all of our clutches look like. And when I did this, I switched the 5 reverse solenoid with the 5S solenoid. It had the same issue. So I'm going to start pulling that transmission control module, and I'll show you how to re-flash the new program to it. And just in case you guys have a tractor and it just gives you a number, I'll go through here. You can come back to the video. You can actually pause and find your fault code number. I hope that helps somebody, because I had to go through the PDF manual and find all that stuff. So I did some research last night, and this one is wired correctly. It's supposed to just go to the fuel shutoff solenoid, and it is just a single terminal. The black is supposed to go to ground, which is that one over there, and this red one is supposed to be connected to the positive on the starter. Whenever you turn the key on, that gives a 12-volt signal to your fuel pump control module, and either that control module shuts off after a certain amount of time, like it has a timer in it, or it just stays running all the time. I think it'll probably shut off after a minute or something like that, but I'm going to repair these wires, get them hooked up, and then we'll turn the key on and we'll see if we got power. So we have to disconnect the battery cables to the starter. Don't try to just disconnect it and hope that you don't short something out. Disconnect the batteries. I'm going to disconnect the batteries real quick, and then we'll go work on the fuel pump. So I was talking about these little solder seal connectors. So one of my favorite ones to use, and every time I use them or talk about them, and I've read other people's comments and their videos, people absolutely hate them, but I really think that's because of the way that it tells you to make it. So it generally just tells you to shove both wires in and then rely on the solder to do the joint, and it just says insert the wires into solder sleeve, but don't do that. Anytime you solder anything, the solder is not the structural part of the bond. It's only there to make connections. So many times I've come across repairs, and they were bad repairs. They've had problems because they put two wires together, or they fray all the ends and kind of stick them together. You need to have a mechanical connection between the two wires. If you have a mechanical connection, you actually twist them together properly, then this goes on, and the solder, all it does is it adheres to that joint, and it adds better connectivity to that joint. And so your wire, and you twist them together like that, then you use this little joint, then they work great. And if you do a good job, you can see that solder has wicked all the way into that joint, and those little pieces of green, that's the adhesive. And so what you do is you get the heat shrink melted down first, and then the green stuff, or whatever color it is, will end up sealing that connection. And the solder, as long as you put heat on it for long enough, it'll actually wick into that joint, and you've got a good solid seal. You can tell where that solder has completely filled in between those two wires, and now it's not going anywhere. You also want to make sure that you're using the smallest one that you can. I used a green one. I had a blue one at first. The blue one's too big. If you use a size that's way too large, then it's not going to shrink down enough. And whenever you twist your wires together, you got to make sure it's not like a normal butt connector. You need a good 3/4 of an inch on a smaller wire, or 1 inch on a larger wire. You fold the ends at a 90 degree, and then you twist them around each other and make sure they're as tight as possible. You want them to try to match the diameter of the insulator, the plastic stuff around the wire, as much as you possibly can. And if you do that, it's great. Now, I don't have any heat shrink, the right size heat shrink. Generally, I'll get a piece of heat shrink and I'll slide it over that, and then I'll heat shrink that as kind of double protection. It also keeps people away from stabbing into it when they're trying to like test things. I don't know why, but when guys see these, they'll stab right into that copper and it ruins the weather protection. I lied, I did have a piece of heat shrink, and the heat shrink you should use is dual wall adhesive lined heat shrink. Probably can't tell in the video, but there's a little bit of shininess right there on the end, and that's that adhesive that comes out. I put a marine connector on it. I did split the back of it, but I'm not worried about that. There you go. Now our ground's done. All right, I zip tied that fuse holder out of the way. I looked at the schematic, and this is supposed to be a 10 amp fuse. It had a 5 amp in it for some reason. Got my negative, got my ground, got it hooked up to the fuel shutoff solenoid, or shutoff valves, what Cummins calls it. So if you want to work on the engine, you need to get on QuickServe, download the manual or find a manual and purchase it. Just so you guys know, you can actually get on Cummins site, just type in Cummins QuickServe in Google, go through, it's free. You can add like I think 5 engine numbers to it, and they'll give you all the information that you want for free. The service manual, wiring schematics, updates, all that stuff. It's all free. After that, you just pay for like 5 more per whatever. But the case manual does not have anything to do with the engine. Engine has its own separate manual, own separate wiring harness. So I'm going to turn the key on and we're going to see if we can hear this fuel pump come on. And it's working. So I'm going to put that cover on and we're going to try to drive it. See what we got. So we need to lift our scraper up. Clutch, go forward. Well, everything works. Well, she's all fixed, sort of. It won't go into gear 13 or higher. That's when that fault comes on, so I need to get a solenoid. But it does run and drive on its own, and it can be moved, and that's what the owner wanted. I need to find the solenoid, and then I'll come back out wherever he puts this thing. But this tractor has sat here for a year. It was back there, and then I had to drag it up here with a bulldozer. They had a mechanic come out, he did a repair, then he came out again, didn't fix anything, sent the guy the bill, then told the guy he would be out, and then told him he would be out again and again and again and again. He went to somebody else. That guy apparently never showed up even once. So he tried calling the dealer. Dealer's like, nah, we're not going to work on it kind of deal. But got it fixed up. Transmission control module, solenoid, fixed the electric lift pump on it. So if you guys are into this stuff, or you have one of these, or you're just watching this video and you're having similar issues, if you do end up needing to replace any of the modules on this tractor, you're going to have that case EST program. You're also going to have a Case New Holland DPA5 adapter, and you need to get an actual legit. There's a bunch of clones out there. The clones don't do programming very well, and they're really glitchy. The adapter itself is going to set you back about $700, $750. If you want the software, I have a guy that does software. He pretty much does anything. So if you need like Caterpillar, Cummins, or particular diesel engine software, like manufacturer-specific software, even stuff like J-Pro, which is, you can hook it up to pretty much any truck and get a lot of data out of the on-the-road trucks. It's not really effective for off-road. I've gotten it to work very seldomly with off-road equipment. As an example, I tried using it on this. Now with J-Pro, you have to use a different adapter, like a USB Link 3, which is again another $750. It'll say that it's communicating with the engine, but when I had engine codes that showed on the display and the engine code showed in case the EST program, J-Pro didn't show it. But J-Pro is like a generic, and they really don't specialize in off-highway stuff. So the guy that I get it through, you get your laptop set up, you're contacting, you put a program called TeamViewer on your laptop, give him the code to it, he remotes into your computer, gets it all set up, gets everything done, and he also does IT support in case you ever need it. And it's vastly cheaper than going the dealer route. The programs that I have are all dealer level or better programs, and there's no subscriptions to them. Like, I can keep using them every year. I don't have to pay a subscription for it. Don't ask me how they do it. I don't know. I just know it's cheaper to go that way, and you actually get different levels of programs when they're available. So if there's like dealer level or engineer level only programs, these guys, you know, they go online, do it. If you guys want to know that contact info, contact me directly, send me an email, or find me on TikTok, send me a direct message or Instagram or something. Another Successful Repair. If you guys like the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and get out and fix something.